Okay, welcome back to video number 4 in Unit 6. We're still talking about naming, however this one's going to be a little bit different because we're talking about covalent nomenclature. If you can remember from last unit, covalent is between two or more nonmetals, okay? So how this is going to be different, you're not going to worry about charges for covalent, so there's going to be no crisscrossing. We can identify how many of these elements are in each molecule. So if I have chlorine trifluoride, that means I have 1 atom of chlorine and 3 atoms of fluorine. So the first step in naming these is we have to name the nonmetal. We're going to use a prefix. And then for the second nonmetal in the molecule, we name it with a prefix, but we also add the IDE ending like we've been doing on all the other names. So what you need to do first is jot down these prefixes that go along with each of these number of atoms. And you do need to memorize these. Alright, so let's do some practice now. So first let's start with naming. So if I have CO2 right up here, that tells me I have 1 carbon and 2 oxygens. Okay? I'm not going to have to crisscross or anything. We put the prefix with the actual element. So since I have 1 carbon here, usually you would put mono. However, mono is only used on the second element. So I'm just going to indicate it's 1 by writing carbon. And then I have 2 oxygens. The prefix for 2 is di. So we have dioxygen, except for oxygen is the second nonmetal. So we take out the ending and we add IDE. So it becomes dioxide. So the entire name is carbon dioxide. So this next one we have N2O3. So if I have 2 N's, the prefix for 2 is di, and then I keep the name nitrogen the same since it's the first one, and then I have 3 oxygens. The prefix for 3 is tri. I have oxygen again, but it becomes oxide. So the entire name is dinitrogen trioxide. Next we have sulfur and oxygen, so SO3. We have 1 S and 3 O's. So since I have 1 S, it's the beginning one, I don't put mono, so it's just sulfur. And then I have 3 O's. The prefix for 3 is tri, and oxygen becomes oxide. So the entire name is sulfur trioxide. Now let's move on and let's write the formulas if we're given these names. So in the first one, it tells us dinitrogen pentoxide. So first let's figure out what these prefixes mean. So on the first one, di, that means there's 2 nitrogens, and pent, that tells us there's 5 oxygens. So what we do is we just make those the subscripts for that element. So if I have 2 nitrogens, this is N2, and then 5 oxygens, O5. And there's your final formula. Next we have chlorine monofluoride. Okay, so it doesn't tell us a prefix on chlorine here, so we can assume that it was supposed to be mono, but we don't have mono on the first name. And then we have another mono with fluoride. Okay, so each of these has 1 of that element. So we have Cl, 1, and then F. And lastly, we have nitrogen trifluoride. So again, since there's no prefix on nitrogen, that means that it should have been mono. So there was 1 of those. And then trifluoride, tri means there's 3. So let's make those the subscripts. So N1, and then fluoride is fluorine, and we have 3 of those. So NF3 is your final formula.